Welcome the anointed ones. When God says, enough, even the loudest liars start whispering. Let's get something straight. This is not your average gossip session. This is a divine courtroom drama unfolding in real time. And guess who's front and center? You, the chosen one. The one they mocked, plotted on, and falsely labeled. Now suddenly, you're the headline, the key witness, and the verdict all in one. And trust me, they're shook. Because while they were busy throwing shade, they forgot you had receipts. Not in screenshots, but in scars. Not in text threads, but in truth. And now, the very streets that swallowed your reputation are coughing it back up, piece by piece, loudly. Here's a fact they didn't count on. 90% of group chats aren't conversations. They're crime scenes with emojis. And guess what? The group chat is on fire. Because your name is trending for the right reasons this time. And their hands are all over the mess. What you're about to hear isn't petty. It's prophetic. The police sirens, the Lookoo, the divine justice system rolling through. This isn't paranoia. It's payback from heaven. The town is talking, not because of scandal, but because of spiritual alignment. Judgment is here, and it's kicking down every door they swore was sealed. So buckle up, because this ain't just tea. It's court, it's karma, it's your comeback. And it's being televised, locally and spiritually. Let's get into it. Number 1. They didn't expect your name to echo in the same halls they used to mock you. They didn't expect your name to echo in the same halls they used to mock you. That's the part that's driving them mad. Back then, you were their favorite punchline, the one they whispered about in corners, laughed at in private, and dismissed in public. You were the underdog, the quiet one, the misfit, and they swore you'd stay that way forever. But now, your name is moving through rooms you've never even stepped into. People they admire are speaking your name with respect. Doors are opening for you without you even knocking. And the very crowd that watched them ridicule you, they're watching you rise. It's not just that you're successful, it's that you're visible. That's the wound they can't bandage. You've become the talk of the town, and not because you tried to prove anything. You stayed grounded, you stayed real, you let God do the talking, and now it's your existence that's exposing their lies. The same people who told everyone you were crazy, unreliable, unstable, now look like the unstable ones for obsessing over someone who's just living. And the worst part for them? You didn't fight for attention. You didn't chase applause, you just evolved, you healed, you elevated. And now your name is showing up in rooms they'd give anything to enter, but can't, because those doors weren't built for deception. So yes, your name is echoing, but not in bitterness, in reverence, in awe. Because what they tried to destroy is now being honored. What they tried to silence is now being requested, and all they can do now is sit back, scroll in secret, and watch what God does with a name they tried to erase. They didn't expect this plot twist, but heaven did, and it's just getting started. Number 2. The same eyes that watched you suffer are now watching their karma get televised. The same eyes that watched you suffer are now watching their karma get televised. And it's eating them alive. They stood by while you were being humiliated, mistreated, talked down to. Some of them even joined in, laughing behind your back like it was entertainment. They didn't flinch, they didn't speak up. They thought you were powerless, voiceless, and forgotten. But now, those same eyes are witnessing the fallout, and this time they can't look away. What they thought was a closed chapter is being reopened, publicly. The pain they caused you is returning to them in ways they can't control. They're paranoid, restless, checking who knows what, watching who's posting what, and wondering how their dirty laundry is suddenly getting aired without a single word from you. And that's the twist. You're not the one doing the talking. Life is, consequences are, divine justice is. They never thought your suffering had a price tag, but now they're paying in full. Some are losing relationships, others are losing credibility. The ones who used you as a joke are now the punchline. And what hurts them the most is that it's happening without your help. You're not dragging anyone. You're not exposing them. You've moved on, but their guilt hasn't. You see, when they watched you suffer, they assumed your pain didn't matter, but it mattered to God. And now your healing is the trigger for their unraveling. They're seeing the strength you built from what they tried to break, and it terrifies them, because now they know, if you survived, it means they're next in line for judgment. They thought you were done for. But what they're seeing now is divine reversal, and deep down, they know it's not over. It's just beginning. Number 3, your story became evidence, and they didn't realize the whole time they were being recorded spiritually. Your story became evidence, and they didn't realize the whole time they were being recorded spiritually. While they were busy mistreating you, slandering you, and trying to break you down, they thought they were operating in silence, like no one would ever know, like they were safe behind closed doors. What they didn't understand is that heaven doesn't miss a thing. Every tear you cried, every betrayal, every false accusation, it was all being logged, spiritually, supernaturally, in a court higher than any earthly system. They thought they were just venting or joking. They didn't know they were testifying against themselves. Every lie they told, every smear campaign, every setup, it all became part of the case being built in the background. Your life, your pain, your response, all of it became spiritual documentation. They were too focused on your reaction to realize their own actions were the ones being recorded, not on a phone, not with a camera. But by divine intelligence, that doesn't need proof to see truth. You never had to argue. You never had to prove your innocence. All you had to do was survive, and heaven did the rest. Now things are shifting. People are waking up to the facts. The story is unraveling, and the truth is spilling out in ways that no one can control. Suddenly people are seeing what really happened. The mask is slipping, and your story, the one they tried to twist, is being brought back to light with clarity, power, and confirmation. Now they're scrambling, because the same story they tried to bury is exposing them. The same voice they tried to silence is rising without making a sound. And what makes it worse is that you didn't force this to happen. It's just divine timing, spiritual justice. The evidence was always there. They just didn't expect it to be used against them. But it is. And the case is airtight. Number 4, the Lookoo wasn't just the police. It was heaven's enforcement team rolling in. The Lookoo wasn't just the police. It was heaven's enforcement team rolling in. What's happening right now isn't just legal or physical, it's deeply spiritual. You're witnessing divine backup, the sirens, the investigations, the sudden exposure. That's just the visible part. Behind the scenes, there's a higher court at work, a court that doesn't need lawyers or loopholes, a court that already saw the beginning and the end. And in that courtroom, the verdict has been handed down. Guilty. For too long, they thought they were getting away with it. They mistook heaven's silence for absence. They thought because you weren't fighting back in the flesh, there was no judgment coming. But now the spiritual enforcement has arrived. Not quietly, not gently, but with force. Things are crumbling in their lives that make no logical sense. Their peace is gone. Their alliances are breaking. Secrets are slipping through cracks they can't seal. That's not coincidence. That's the heavenly strike team executing divine warrants. There are ancestral judges who saw what happened to you and said, enough. Angelic marshals are assigned to ensure justice isn't delayed any longer. Divine prosecutors are presenting your case before thrones of righteousness, and the evidence is overwhelming. You were the target, but now you're the reason justice is moving. Not because you demanded revenge, but because you kept your hands clean while heaven did the work. The court of man might take time, it may move slow, but the spiritual court, it already ruled, and that's why things are unraveling so fast. What's falling apart in their world is a direct response to what they tried to do to yours. They didn't just wrong you. They violated a chosen vessel, and now the price is being collected. This isn't just a legal matter, it's a heavenly enforcement, and it's unstoppable. Number 5. They knew you were special. That's why they tried to beat the proof out of you. They knew you were special. That's why they tried to beat the proof out of you. They weren't confused about your value. They weren't unsure of who you were. If anything, they saw it clearer than you did at the time. That light you carried. That grace that made you different, the unexplainable favor that followed you even in hard times. It irritated the darkness in them, so they tried to kill the evidence. They didn't come after you because you were nothing. They came after you because your very presence exposed their lack of integrity. Your kindness made their cruelty stand out. Your purity highlighted their manipulation. Your ability to bounce back made their bitterness look loud and useless. You didn't even know how powerful you were, but they felt it, and they panicked. That's why the attacks came so consistently. The lies, the smears, the betrayal, the backstabbing. None of it was random. It was targeted spiritual warfare. They saw your potential, so they tried to shut it down early. They thought if they broke your spirit, they could erase the evidence of who you were becoming. They wanted to rewrite your identity, make you think you were broken, messy, unstable, anything but chosen, because as long as you didn't know, they felt safe. But once you figured it out, once you stopped questioning your worth and started walking in it, that's when their whole illusion started falling apart. Your aura was evidence. Your peace was proof. Your growth made their cruelty impossible to ignore. That's why they wanted to crush you. Not because you were weak, but because you were divine proof walking around in human form. And now, despite everything they did, you're still here, still rising, still chosen, which means the plan didn't work. And now the truth can't be hidden. They tried to destroy the receipt of their wickedness, but all they did was confirm it. And now, everyone sees it. Number 6. Their gossip became a confession. Their gossip became a confession. What started off as them running their mouths, joking about you, making little side comments to feel superior, has now come back to bite them. At the time, it felt harmless to them. Just words, just banter, just shade. But those harmless chats were actually confessions disguised as entertainment. And now the same mouths they used to mock you are being used as evidence against them. They didn't realize how much they were revealing while trying to be petty. Every lie they told, every exaggeration, every character assassination they slipped into conversation was them documenting their own guilt. While they laughed, heaven recorded. While they whispered, the spiritual realm took notes. They thought they were building a case against you. But all along they were building a case against themselves. Now things are flipping. Those same stories they spread are being picked apart. People are starting to connect dots. They're realizing the version of you that was pushed out there doesn't match the version of you they're now seeing rise. And the people who were the loudest about your flaws are suddenly getting real quiet. Because the gossip they started is now putting them on trial. Socially, spiritually, and in some cases legally. It's not just karma, it's accountability. They talk too much, they expose too much. They gossiped themselves into a corner they can't escape from. They showed their hands, their motives, their envy, all in plain sight, and thought no one would ever catch on. Now the town is buzzing, but for a different reason. The story has shifted. You're not the joke anymore. They are. And the transcript is playing back loud and clear. Every lie they told is circling back with truth attached to it. Their own words have become the rope, and they tied the knot themselves. Number 7. Your absence was the alarm bell that woke the system up. Your absence was the alarm bell that woke the system up. They thought you were just slipping away quietly. They assumed you'd leave and be forgotten, like your presence never really mattered. But your exit wasn't just physical. It was spiritual disruption. The moment you walked away, the balance shifted. The mask they wore started slipping. The lies they told began to lose power. You were holding up way more than you realized. And when you left, everything they built on your silence began to fall apart. You weren't just another person in the room. You were the light, the stabilizer, the divine witness holding back judgment just by being present. So when you walked away, the covering lifted. What was once hidden in shadows started creeping into the open. Secrets started leaking. People started asking questions. And the truth? It started screaming. They wanted your silence because it helped maintain their illusion. Your presence gave them something to measure themselves against. Someone they could control, blame, manipulate, or gaslight. But once you left, that control vanished. They no longer had you to point fingers at. No more distractions. Just their own reflections staring back at them without the scapegoat they used to rely on. What's happening now isn't random. It's the result of a vacuum, a spiritual void that was created when you exited the scene. You didn't throw shade. You didn't seek revenge. You just left. And that was enough to trigger a collapse. Not because you were being petty, but because the truth was finally unchained. Your departure exposed the imbalance. It forced people to look closer, to listen, to question what they once accepted. Your absence made noise, not because you said anything, but because what you represented couldn't be replaced. And now, everything they built with your silence is crumbling under the weight of truth. Number 8. They built social status off your scars, now they're paying for every brick. They built social status off your scars, and now they're paying for every brick. It wasn't just betrayal, it was exploitation. They took your pain, your vulnerability, your lowest moments, and turned them into currency. They told your story without your permission. They painted you as the villain, the unstable one, the problem, all while positioning themselves as the victim, the hero, the misunderstood saint. And the worst part? People bought it. They clapped, they followed. They felt sorry for them, not knowing they were clapping for a carefully constructed lie built on your back. They used your suffering as a storyline. Your real life, your trauma, became their public relations campaign. And for a while, it worked. They gained attention, they got sympathy, some even built entire platforms around the false narrative. But now, the foundation is cracking, because truth always collects its debt, and they're being billed for every benefit they gained from the pain they caused. You see it now, the relationships falling apart, the sudden losses, the awkward silences when your name comes up. People are starting to connect the dots. They're realizing the one who screamed the loudest wasn't always the victim. That's the part they didn't see coming. The reversal, the exposure, the slow, unraveling consequence of building anything off a false foundation. Spiritually, they're bankrupt. They can't sleep. They're paranoid. They know deep down that what they did wasn't just messy. It was wrong. Socially, the support is thinning. People are distancing themselves. The applause is quieter. The pity party is over. And for some, legally, it's catching up. Lies have consequences. Defamation has a cost. And the truth? It has receipts. They thought your scars made you weak. But those scars are witnesses. And now, every brick they laid on top of your pain is being torn down. By truth, by time, and by the same people who once believed them. Number 9. The town is talking, because the cover-up was louder than the crime. The town is talking because the cover-up was louder than the crime. People are just now waking up to what really happened, and it's not the betrayal that's blowing their minds. It's how many people helped sweep it under the rug. The lies were too polished. The silence was too coordinated. The reactions were too rehearsed. And now that the story is cracking open, everyone's realizing this wasn't just one person doing wrong. It was a network of people working overtime to protect that wrong. What's got everyone whispering now isn't just the abuser's behavior. It's the long list of people who saw it, knew about it, felt the energy, heard the rumors, maybe even witnessed some of it firsthand, and said nothing. That silence was loud, deafening even. It was the unspoken pact to keep the image intact, to protect reputations, to avoid uncomfortable conversations. But now that pact is crumbling. And with it, the fake loyalty and fake friendships that came with it. The cover-up took effort. It took strategy. It took people deliberately choosing comfort over character. They gaslit you, made you question your own reality, brushed things off, said you were too sensitive, called it just how things are. But it wasn't just how things are. It was abuse, and they helped hide it, whether through denial, distraction, or straight-up deception. Now the truth is leaking, and it's uncontrollable. People are talking, not just because they want drama, but because they're realizing they were manipulated too. They were fed stories. They were shown edited versions. And the more the truth comes out, the more the enablers start looking just as guilty as the original offender. This is why the shame is hitting everyone involved. Because the betrayal wasn't isolated, it was protected. And now that protection is being exposed for what it really was, complicity. The town isn't gossiping. The town is finally waking up. Number 10. They can't find peace because they know you were the test they failed. They can't find peace because they know you were the test they failed. You weren't just another person passing through their life. You were a divine checkpoint, a mirror, a measuring stick sent to reveal who they really were when no one was watching. And they didn't just fail quietly, they failed loudly, with arrogance, with cruelty, with full confidence that they get away with it. But now, their conscience is louder than any consequence. Deep down, they always knew there was something different about you. The way you moved, the way you forgave, the way you didn't retaliate even when you had every reason to. You made them uncomfortable, not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence highlighted everything wrong within them. And instead of self-reflecting, they projected. Instead of choosing growth, they chose destruction. Now that you're no longer in their life, the silence they prayed for is tormenting them. Every delay feels like punishment. Every awkward moment feels like exposure. They're not paranoid because something is happening. They're paranoid because they know something should happen. Their guilt is so heavy, it's turning into anxiety. Every phone call makes them flinch. Every message makes their chest tighten. They wonder who's finally speaking the truth. Who knows what? What's going to surface next? They can't shake the feeling that judgment is near, not because you said it, but because their spirit knows it. They judged themselves the moment they chose ego over empathy. And now they can't outrun the consequences. Because it's not just karma at work. It's the realization that they had a divine opportunity to do right by someone chosen. And they trashed it. You were the test. Not for performance, but for integrity. And now that the test is over, so is their illusion of peace. What they thought was buried is rising, and it's not you haunting them, it's their own choices echoing back. Number 11. Your deliverance disrupted a whole network of darkness. Your deliverance disrupted a whole network of darkness. You weren't just breaking free from a toxic situation, you were yanking the root out of an entire system that was feeding off your light. They had built structures around you, spiritually and socially, hoping you'd stay trapped, confused, and compliant. But when you finally walked away, it wasn't just a personal decision. It was a spiritual detonation. Things started collapsing in places you didn't even know were connected. That's because you were the power source. Your presence carried divine energy. Your compassion covered them. Your prayers held back judgment. Even your silence was a shield. They took all of that for granted while secretly feeding off it, and feeding lies about you at the same time. Some of them were emotionally tied to your downfall. Others were financially benefiting from your pain. And a few were spiritually rooted in witchcraft, manipulation, and generational patterns meant to keep you bound. But your freedom exposed it all. The moment you broke out, the spiritual grip they had on you shattered. And with that, everything they built around your captivity started falling apart. Their relationships are imploding. Their money is drying up. Their false sense of control is slipping right through their hands. You weren't the weak one. You were the cornerstone. And when you moved, the structure collapsed. They're trying to figure out why nothing is working for them anymore. Why doors are slamming shut. Why people are leaving their lives. Why confusion and chaos are hitting them from every angle. What they don't want to admit is that your freedom triggered judgment. Because as long as they had you under control, they felt protected. But now that you're out, spiritually cleared, emotionally detached, and mentally free, they've lost their covering. You didn't just escape, you exposed. And the unraveling has only just begun. Number 12. They were so busy framing you, they forgot to wash their own hands. They were so busy framing you, they forgot to wash their own hands. They were obsessed with making you look guilty, painting you as unstable, dramatic, angry, or dishonest. Anything that would shift the attention away from the truth. They put all their energy into crafting a narrative, controlling the optics and making sure you looked like the problem. But in the process, they left a trail, a messy one. And now that truth is starting to rise, that trail is being followed, right back to them. They thought they were untouchable. They felt clever, strategic, even powerful. But when you're constantly lying, exaggerating, and spinning stories, eventually you forget what you said and who you said it to. That's where they messed up. They underestimated people's memory. They didn't think receipts would resurface. They didn't think anyone would connect the dots. But now, everything's starting to align, and it's not in their favor. What they didn't realize is that while they were so focused on your every move, they got sloppy with their own. In trying to dig up dirt on you, they exposed their own skeletons. In trying to convince people to watch you, they accidentally invited those same people to start watching them. And the moment people looked closer, they saw the cracks, the inconsistencies, the bad fruit, the real manipulation. Now the spotlight is shifting. The microscope is no longer on you. It's on the ones who tried to bury you. And under that magnifying glass, their fingerprints are everywhere. On the lies, on the smear campaigns, on the fake stories, and most of all, on the broken relationships and damage they caused while trying to act innocent. They wanted you to look guilty, but forgot to clean up their own mess. And now that truth is pulling receipts, they're being seen for who they really are. Not because you exposed them, but because their own actions did. Number 13. What they thought was a private plot is now a public prosecution. What they thought was a private plot is now a public prosecution. They did their damage in the dark, behind closed doors, in hushed conversations, over text threads they thought no one would ever see. They used coded language, inside jokes, secret alliances, all built around tearing you down while keeping their own hands looking clean. They laughed at your pain, bonded over your struggle, and convinced themselves that because no one was stopping them, they were untouchable. But divine timing doesn't forget, and it doesn't play favorites, it just waits. And now, what they buried is being dug up without your effort. The same people they entertained with lies are now disgusted by the truth. The same group chats that cheered them on are now leaking. Screenshots, voice notes, strange coincidences becoming clear. All the whispers are turning into a courtroom testimony, and the court is public. You didn't need to fight for justice. Heaven took your case. And now exposure is rolling out like episodes in a show no one can stop watching. The arrogance they once flaunted has turned into silence. The laughs have faded into tension, and the worst part for them, you're not just surviving, you're being vindicated. Loudly, righteously, repeatedly, your rise is being paired with their unraveling. And it's not out of vengeance, it's divine correction. People are seeing who you really are, and who they really were the whole time. It's all being flipped in real time. And now, the ones who thought they had the power to control the narrative are being dragged by the very story they created. This isn't karma in theory, it's justice in action. Their private plot has become public evidence. And now they're the ones on trial, exposed by their own schemes and haunted by the fact that the truth is louder than their lies ever were. Number 14. You were the story they tried to bury. Now you're the headline they can't escape. You were the story they tried to bury. Now you're the headline they can't escape. They treated you like you were disposable, like your story didn't matter, like your truth could be buried under rumors, gaslighting, and silence. They tried to erase you like a mistake, rewrite your identity, twist the narrative, make people forget you ever existed. But what they didn't realize is that you weren't a typo. You were a testimony in progress. And the more they tried to delete you, the more powerful your presence became. They thought that once you were out of the picture, the noise would stop, that your absence would be the end of your influence. But all they did was make room for your growth. Because when God is behind your story, you don't need to scream to be heard. Your survival speaks volumes. The same people who once ignored you are now tuning in. The ones who laughed at you are now quiet, and the ones who joined in on your mockery, they're now watching your rise with confused, uneasy faces. What's really driving them crazy is that they can't control the conversation anymore. You've become the center of it without even trying. Your name is being brought up in rooms they didn't want you to enter. People are asking questions, connecting the dots, and revisiting stories they once believed. And suddenly, the truth they tried to smother is out in the open, bolded, highlighted, and repeated. This isn't revenge, this is resurrection. You were the seed they thought would die. But instead, you rooted. You grew in silence. And now you've broken through the surface in full bloom and they can't stop it. The town is talking not because you're loud, but because your story is undeniable. You were the part of the plot they underestimated. But now, you're the headline they can't scroll past, can't silence, and can't erase. And heaven isn't done. It's just getting started. Everything they tried to hide is now center stage, and your name is rising while their masks are falling. What began as a silent attack against you has turned into a divine exposure they can't outrun. You were never just a victim. You were the catalyst, the witness, the walking verdict they didn't see coming. Every whisper, every scheme, every lie, it's all unraveling now in front of the very people they once fooled. You didn't have to clap back. You didn't have to clear your name. Your consistency did that. Your healing did that. Your survival testified louder than their gossip ever could. And now the same town that once watched you bleed is watching you be exalted. You're not just surviving. You're being vindicated, elevated, and positioned. Let this be your reminder. Your silence was strategy. Your exit was judgment. And your return, that's prophecy fulfilled. Because the story they tried to bury has become the fire they can't put out. And it's clear now, you were never the problem. You were the proof. Heaven took your case and the verdict is loud. You won. If this message lit something up in your spirit, don't just watch. Connect. Subscribe to the channel if you know you're walking in divine purpose, and you refuse to stay silent while truth is rising. Comment below if you've ever felt targeted, misunderstood, or buried. Your voice matters here. Like this video if you're reclaiming your story and letting heaven do the talking. Share it with someone who needs confirmation that God does not miss. Not one lie, not one injustice, not one tear. This isn't just content. This is spiritual confirmation wrapped in truth and fire. Join the tribe. Be part of the movement. Your breakthrough isn't coming. It's here. Let them watch. Let God work. Let your light speak. God bless you.